Hi, I'm Ellen Gormley and welcome to my channel. Today we're doing this lovely stitch and read with this shell pattern. And if you see carefully, in between the shells, there are these little crossover X's. So let's get started, shall we? This is a worsted weight yarn. I used a size I hook. You know it's my favorite. So I'm grabbing a purple this time, and it looks kind of dark on camera. Maybe I should grab something a little less dark. I always like to use something a little bit different than the original swatch so you can see what it looks like in a second color. So let's use this gray. It is a light worsted, and I'm going to use the same size I hook, so we shall see what kind of good drape it has. This pattern is a multiple of 6 plus 2. So if we're looking at the diagram, which I enlarged, hopefully it's large enough, you'll see that each repeat is starting with the X, which is a single crochet, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 stitches, and then it starts the next one. So each repeat is 6 stitches. So we need 6 for each occurrence of the pattern across, plus 1 more to be the anchor at the end, and 1 more to be the turning chain at the beginning. So it's a multiple of 6 plus 2. So without even counting the ovals or the chains on this diagram, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pattern repeats times 6 is 30 plus 1 plus 2. There's 32 ovals there. Okay, so my swatch though is 1, 2, 3, 4 occurrences of the repeat. 4 times 6 is 24, plus 1 to be the anchor is 25, and 1 more for the turning chain is 26. For this swatch, I chained 26. So let's see what we decide to do here as I demonstrate this pattern. And I think that the multiple is important for you to know. That way you can customize it for yourself. You can either make it narrower and make it a scarf, or you can make it much wider and make it a blanket, or anything in between. It is completely up to you. Okay, let's put a slip knot on the hook and get started. So let's chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 1 repeat. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 2 repeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's 3 repeats. Let's do 1 for the anchor and 1 for the turning chain. Okay, so 6 times 3 is 18. Plus 2 is 20, so we chained 20. Now, reading the diagram, I actually have the written instructions here as well, but you know what? I don't use them. I just read the diagram because it's so much easier. So when I made my swatch, I looked at the diagram and I didn't even bother to look at the written instructions, so I assume they're correct. But I just looked at the diagram because I find that so much easier. So let's try and do both, perhaps. Okay, how about that? Okay, so what we will do if we follow along with the written pattern and also the diagram, in the diagram I can see that there's an X, which is a single crochet, chain 1, skip 2 stitches, then 1, 2 doubles in the next chain, chain 1, 2 doubles in the same chain. See, they're all pointing in the same bottom spot, and then skip 2 chains, chain 1, single crochet. Got that? And hopefully the written instructions say the same exact thing. Single crochet in the second chain from the hook. Okay, I can do that. Then chain 1. Okay, I can do that. Skip the next 2 chains. Okay, that's in agreement. 1, 2. Then 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the next chain. So all of that is correct. So when it's in parentheses, it means all of it goes in the same spot. So I'm going to skip those 2 chains like it said. 2 double crochets, 1, 2, chain 1, 1, 2 in the same spot. Okay, looks like the picture so far. There's the first little shell there. Chain 1, skip 2 chains, skip next 2 chains, single crochet in next chain, single crochet in next chain. Okay, so it's in agreement so far. That's a good sign. So I'm supposed to chain 1, skip 2 chains, single crochet in the next chain. Now the diagram sometimes will have a shaded box where like part of it is darker than the rest, and that's the repeat box. And if this diagram had that repeat box, it would be here. It would be now, right here where it says repeat from star across. So we're going to go back to the star where it says chain 1. So we'll do that. We'll skip 2 chains, 1, 2, and then we'll do that shell, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the same stitch. Now remember, I say this every time, but I'll go ahead and say it again, that you have to read your instructions for like things like shell and cluster. You can't just assume that if it says shell, you know exactly what it means, because they can be different. Now this pattern didn't say shell, it didn't even specify, instead it wrote it out. 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the next chain. So that's okay. They just spelled it out. I'm using the word generically. So another grouping. Again here, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets in the same chain. And then after this row, I will lay it down and show you where we are. I might as well show you now. This is where we are so far. Look, it matches the picture. We're on the right track, friends. Okay, chain 1, then skip, there's 3 left, skip 1, 2, and single crochet in the last chain. So hey, guess what? It turned out correctly. Our multiple was correct. We chained the right number of stitches. Our foundation row must be correct because we ended up on the right number of stitches. So hey, all's well in the world. Okay, row 2. So if we're looking at the diagram for row 2, we can see that we are reading for right-handers, right to left on the diagram, and for left-handers, you'll be going the other direction. Then for row 2, we will do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chains, which counts as a double crochet plus 2 chains, and we'll skip all this stuff in the middle and put a single crochet here in the middle of the shell. Then we're going to chain 2 and do this Xy thing, which is crossed double crochets, and they're not in that single crochet, they're in the space on either side of it. So let's see what the written instructions say about that. So the written instructions say chain 5 counts as the double crochet plus chain 2. Okay, so we are reading it exactly the way the designer intended. So I've chained 5, which is 3, counting as the first double crochet plus chain of 2. Skip next chain 1 space. Okay, that's right here, skipping that. Single crochet in the next chain 1 space. The next chain 1 space is over here. It does not say to skip the double crochets, but it is implied since it says to place the next stitch in the chain 1 space. So single crochet in there, chain 2, skip next chain 1 space. Okay, I'm skipping that chain 1 space. Okay, it doesn't say skip the single crochet, but again, it's implied because it's telling us where the next stitch is going to go. Double crochet in the next chain 1 space. Okay, so that's over here on the other side of the single crochet. So we're going to double crochet there. And it says chain 1. Now it says working behind the last double crochet. That's this one we just made, working behind it. Double crochet in last skipped chain 1 space. Okay, the last skipped chain 1 space is here, and we're going to work behind the one we just made. So we're going to go back here. So I actually did my swatch a little bit differently because I put my double crochet in front. And by the symbol diagram, it's really hard to tell whether they mean in front of or behind when these stitches cross over each other. And I'm not sure it makes a critical difference in the appearance of the pattern. I would say just be consistent. So if we were to do behind this double crochet, but single crochet in this spot here where I'm tapping with my index finger, that's where we're going to go. There's a little bit of fiddling that's going to happen. So I've yarned over already because that's what I do. I'm going to turn this towards me and kind of work behind it, like it said, and into that chain 1 space. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook twice. So here is our X. So my X's are just the other way, and this one is behind that one. So I don't know. Does it really matter? If you want to be precise about exactly how the designer intended it, then yeah, I guess it matters. So let me see. I hope I have enough yarn handy on this. You know what? I think this gray ball of yarn is quite knotted. So you know what? We might end up changing color and show you a 2-color version of this. Okay, so after the crossed double crochet was made, we're going to chain 2. And single crochet in the next chain 1 space, okay? And then we're going to repeat across from the star. So going back to the star, it says chain 2, 1, 2, skip the next chain 1 space, double crochet in the chain 1, the next chain 1 space. Okay, so there we are. Chain 1, and then double crochet, working behind the last double crochet in the last skipped chain 1 space. So that's working behind this one. We're going to double crochet in this chain 1 space back here. So let's do that. Do what works, friends. It's not rocket science. So it's okay if it's not perfect. Horseshoes and hand grenades, right? The only thing that you could be imperfect with. Okay, and then we are to chain 2. So after the cross double crochet is made, chain 2, single crochet in the chain 1 space. And we're repeating from the start all the way across, which, you know, we are at that last end spot. So let's look at the instructions. Across to within the last chain 1 space. Okay, so we did the single crochet in the chain 1 space. We're going to now chain 2. We're going to skip the next chain 1 space, which is right here, and double crochet in the last single crochet. So we are right on. And you know what, friends? Let's go ahead and change color because my gray ball of yarn is kind of knotted. So before I pull through on my final stitch, I'm going to cut this gray yarn and pull another medium colored yarn. What color shall it be today? I guess it's going to be pink. So we're going to do pink. I'll grab pink out of my basket behind me, and I'm going to pull through with the new yarn to finish the stitch. Finish the stitch. Okay, now at the end of row 2, so we followed this way this time across, and we double crocheted in that final stitch. Now row 3 says chain 1 and X is single crochet in the top of that double crochet. So if we read the instructions, the written instructions, we can see that it says chain 1, single crochet. Guess what? Chain 1, single crochet in the first double crochet. So let's do that. Chain 1, turn. Now it told us to turn at the end of the last row, and I didn't do that yet, and it really doesn't matter all that much whether you turn at the end of the row or turn at the beginning of the row, unless there's something fun going on the edging. And also, I hope that the pattern writer is consistent about putting the turn either at the beginning of the row or the end of the row. Whichever way they do it, as long as they keep doing it the same way, is fine with me. Okay, then it says chain 1, skip next chain 2 space. Now there's a dash there that you can't really see because of the photocopy. When there's a chain dash 2 space, that means a chain 2 that's already made. That doesn't mean make 2 chains. If it was make 2 chains, it would say chain 2 with no dash. But because it says chain dash 2, it means that chain 2 space was already made. So we are chaining 1. We're skipping that chain dash 2 space that's already been made, and then we'll put another one of these groupings, 2 double crochets, chain 1, 2 double crochets, all in the single crochet this time. Okay, so chain 1, And we're skipping the chain dash 2 space, and in the single crochet here in the middle, we're placing another grouping. So double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then it says chain 1, and it says chain 1. Skip next chain 2 space. There's the dash really well, and the photocopy left it out there for some reason. And then single crochet in the next chain 1 space. So we're skipping the chain dash 2 space, and we'll put a single crochet here in the middle, that top middle part of that X crossover double crochet grouping thing. Okay, so then it is telling us repeat from the star. So the star goes back to chain 1. So do you see how it just keeps repeating? So it's X in the middle of that little X, which is a single crochet in the middle of that crossed over X stitch thing, and then chain 1, and then a shell, and then a chain 1, and then another single crochet there. So we're just repeating this across. So at first I was having trouble remembering, do I chain 2 or do I chain 1? Because one of the rows you chain 2 in between these crossover stitches, but between the shells you're just chaining 1 in between. And I remembered that because these shell groupings take up more space, they need less stuff on either side. Because the X grouping takes up a smaller amount of space, it needs more of a span, which is a second chain. Does that make sense to you? But that helped me remember and memorize the pattern so that I could do it without looking at the pattern from then on. So this grouping of 4 big stitches with the chain in the middle, it doesn't need as much bookend on either side, so just chain 1. But these crossed over stitches are narrower, and so they needed more of a bridge or a walkway between groupings. And so the row that has the X's, you put 2 chains on either side. The tricks we do to try and remember a pattern so that we don't have to bring our instructions with us wherever we go, especially when it's just this easy 2-row repeat. Also, when I'm bringing my crochet somewhere and I don't really want to bring the instructions, I might at this point take a photo of my work because I know it's correct. And then instead of a symbol diagram, I just have my photo and I can look at it and see what I did and know that that's what I should keep doing. So it's important that you do it right in the first couple of rows so that you've got it down, and then you can just read your work. So now at the end of this row, you can see I had that chain 5, which is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So and I'm finishing this shell here on the end. So after my double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, which is what I did here. Let's move it over. Now to finish this row, it's going to be a chain 1 and a single crochet in the 1, 2, 3, third of the chain 5. Okay, so the X is the single crochet, the ovals are chains, when we'll put the single crochet there to form a corner. So I'm going to count on my work, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to put the single crochet in the third one. There we go. Okay, so here's where we are so far. And let's just do 1 or 2 more rows, shall we? And then we will be off and running. So now we've actually done rows 2 and 3, and it says repeat rows 2 and 3 for pattern. So now we'll go back to the row 2. And we'll either look at the row 2 on the diagram, or we can read the row 2 instructions on the paper, or we can just keep going. So like rows 2, 4, and 6 are all the same, and then rows 1, 3, 5, and 7 are all the same. So this row 2 is the exact same thing as row 6. So I don't have to look at row 6. I can just look at row 2, and that way you don't get lost. Essentially, my point is you don't need all the remaining rows of the diagram for you to complete the pattern. This pattern would be complete with just these 2 rows. Maybe 3, because the first row is worked into chains, but row 3 here is not worked into chains. it's worked into the previous row. So if you just had rows 1, 2, and 3 of the diagram, you'd still be set. There's really no need for the extra rows. Are you seeing what I'm saying? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is what we're going to do here. And we're placing a single crochet in the middle of that grouping. Chain 2, because this is the narrow one with the X's. And so let's make this row all the way across. Remember working behind. We're going to yarn over, kind of turn it towards me, grab it here, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 twice. Chain 2, because this is a narrower thing than the grouping. And I hear the cat rubbing on the door because he wants to come in. Now that I have a studio space, he wants to come in. He can't just come and go as he pleases, poor little guy. Working behind. See it? Do I need to do that more slowly? Okay, so here it is. Here's where my thumb is, where the target is, right here. I'm going to put it toward me, go in behind it as if it's not there, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook, and chain 2. All right. And for the end, when I get to the end, let's see what I was supposed to do, because I don't really remember. I do remember, but anyway. So at the end, so single crochet in the grouping, chain 2, and then a double crochet in the final single crochet is what we're doing. All right. So here's what it looks like in 2 colors. So it's still very pretty. I like the overall pattern of the blue. That's very pretty too. And any of the colors all by itself is cool too. But hey, now you can see what a 2-color, you at least get a glimpse of what a 2-color swatch would look like. Make sure you swatch whatever you're going to do. That's the whole point of swatching, is to keep playing until you feel like you've got it right. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you've enjoyed this read and stitch along with this split shell pattern. Split shell and X's. I'll have to come up with a clever name for it. Thanks so much. Have a great day.